All right, welcome to today's news. Not the pedophile report, not private pedo party, and I'm neither of those things. And I am Matt Taibbi, and
I'm Michael Tracy reporting for duty, like John Kerry. Remember that?
That's right, John Kerry reporting for duty. Boy, that was a weird campaign, wasn't it?
Voting.
Yeah.
So I was just a wee lad when that was going on, but
that's right.
I was enough of a nerd at like 15 or 16 that I was still into it. So
that's right.
I did watch the Democratic convention where the big moment was supposed to be John Kerry saying, "I'm John Kerry and I'm reporting for duty," and he salutes. And then Karl Rove colludes with these guys who claim that John Kerry did not legitimately earn his Purple Hearts. That was run by Jerome Corsi, who you might recall later made a cameo in Russiagate.
Yes, and not just a cameo, a major role.
Yeah, major role, actually. A big cameo.
Yeah. And that wasn't the big moment of that convention, as it turned out. The big moment, it turned out to be Barack Obama's speech.
Right.
In hindsight. And
Zell Miller. Remember Zell Miller?
No. What happened with Zell Miller?
Oh, sorry. No. Zell Miller was in the Republican convention. He was the Southern Democrat from Georgia, I think. Senator, longtime senator, like in the Strom Thurmond sort of class of people, end of his career. And he turns on the Democrats in 2004 and endorses Bush because Democrats are weak on terrorism in Iraq and everything. Go back. We should go back and watch that. It's like from a different millennium.
Epic. Yeah.
Epic. Yeah.
Epic is the word we're looking for. And we're going to have a callback, I think, to that convention, oddly enough, later on in our Final Four.
Are we?
Okay. Yeah, I think so.
I'm not sure what you're referring to, so I'm looking forward to the surprise.
I think so, maybe. But we got to get to a couple of things first. We're doing this live today, folks, because Michael yesterday was on assignment, actually reporting, so we didn't record as we normally would.
A very, very novel thing to do for journalists these days, I think.
What? Go out?
Antiquated. Yeah, antiquated. Actually go out and try to do some reporting.
Pick up the telephone. Yeah.
Well, I actually had to physically go to a courthouse, so it was even more complicated than that.
Even more so, but even the whole concept of talking to people. I mean, I still remember a column that was in something like Vox years ago, where there was some journalist talking about how he can't stand the telephone, and I thought maybe this is not the right job for you. I don't know.
Well, you do have to kind of update your methods as like a quote millennial or Gen Z journalist, because nobody picks up the phone anymore.
That is true.
So you have to be like just a preternatural texter and maybe like eventually goad somebody to get on the phone. But it's not like people just pick up the phone these days and say hello and then be like willing to have a little chat.
Right. You got to arrange the phone call and then you have the phone call. But you still
back
got to
in
have
the day, you used to just be able to make a call and like the presumption would be that somebody would pick up, right?
Right, exactly. Hang on a second. 7 a.m.
On the West Coast.
Yeah, on the West Coast, yes, but we usually release the show earlier than this, 9 a.m. So this is yes, it's live. It'll still be there later in the morning if you want to go look.
Wake your ass up. You ever watch the Breakfast Club? That's their intro. So
is it really?
It's a little just like soundbite that they play at the beginning of their segment saying, "Wake your ass up, the Breakfast Club."
Oh, right. Yes, that's right. All right. Well, enough throat clearing. Michael, you went to a hearing yesterday. Can you tell us what happened?
Yeah. So in the past few weeks, there was a fairly expedited settlement agreement that was arrived at in principle between two opposing litigation parties in the matter of Jane Doe v. Bank of America, which is yet another Epstein-related lawsuit that was filed relatively recently in October of 2025 by the same consortium of lawyers who have already made a fortune on their prior class action settlements that they obtained by suing other major financial institutions, namely JP Morgan and Deutsche Bank. But they went after Bank of America
and the Virgin Islands
Boys and Edwards. So the leaders
those
didn't
two,
sue the U.S. Virgin Islands, if I'm remembering correctly. The U.S. Virgin Islands was sued by the U.S. Virgin Islands sued J.P. Morgan.
Right. I'm sorry.
Jeffrey Epstein's estate was domiciled in the U.S. Virgin Islands, so they did have to go to probate court in the U.S. Virgin Islands to broker the settlement program arising out of Epstein's estate. But to my knowledge, I'm not sure that Boys and Edwards sued the U.S. Virgin Islands government. Although you always find something new on this story, so it's possible. But anyway, it's been very successingly leveraged by these guys and gals into this
unbelievably successfully.
Unbelievably, yeah. Where if you just tally up the JP Morgan settlement and the Deutsche Bank settlement, that alone is already like $320 million, something in that neighborhood. Then you add in the Epstein estate settlement fund, that was around 130 million and growing, because there are still lawsuits being filed against the Epstein estate individually. And then there was even another class action settlement that was brought against the Epstein estate that settled in February, shortly after the latest release of the Epstein files, even though in 2020, there was supposed to have been this definitive resolution in terms of any claims that could be brought against the Epstein estate for liability vis-a-vis Epstein's alleged sex trafficking venture. But that was just overridden by the same crew of very ambitious, adventurous, and intrepid lawyers. So they got another, I forget the amount now, but it's something like maybe 60 million more in another Epstein estate settlement. Now, on top of that, it's 70 something million from Bank of America that was just
72.5.
72? Yeah, okay. So a notice was sent to the court maybe around 2 weeks ago informing Judge Rakoff that Bank of America and the quote survivors lawyers had arrived at a settlement in principle through a mediator, like a former federal judge who was appointed to mediate between the parties. And so they were presenting this initial settlement proposal to Judge Rakoff yesterday in Manhattan in federal court. So I went, and it was very interesting. I do want to thank the New York Times reporter. What was his name? Goldstein, whatever the guy's name. If you search New York Times, like Epstein financial reporting stuff, he actually does some decent stuff. But I forgot that you needed to bring a notepad to the.
So he lent you a notepad.
So he ripped out a bunch of pieces of paper from his notepad, and I borrowed a pen from one of the court officers. So helpful assistance was provided.
Is it Matt Goldstein?
Let's see. I think that sounds right.
Yeah.
Matthew Goldstein. That's right. So if you're out there, Matthew Goldstein, thank you for the notepad paper. But I wanted to go to this because, for a number of reasons. First of all, just the fact that there is yet another gigantic settlement in the tens of millions that's being finalized or in the process of being finalized now in 2026 related to Jeffrey Epstein is crazy unto itself. I mean, we're coming up on 6.5 years ago, the guy died. And there's already been a slew of these same lawsuits, but the lawsuits, because they were successfully obtained in the past, JP Morgan and Deutsche Bank in particular, they create a model where
there's already a framework. So and JP Morgan got what, it was 290 million. Is that right?
I think it was 270.
Okay.
Something like that. 280 maybe.
Oh no. I'm sorry. Yeah. And then Deutsche was was
around 90 million. 80 million, 90 million, something like that.
Okay. All right.
Epstein estate, like it was 121 million, I think.
This is awesome. I'm sorry, we got to interrupt. At Korashama says this podcast should be called Zionism's Last Stand. I love it.
Funny.
Let's do that.
I got my assumption as to why he's saying that, or she, or they, is that
or Zier.
Matt, you know what? Enough of the funny business around pronouns. That is so 2021.
I'm sorry.
You know what? I'm frankly offended. Because I would like to declare myself as gender fluid this morning. That was my whole plan, actually, from the beginning. I hid it from you. I wanted to spring it upon you and just get your reaction.
That was the surprise reveal of the
That
show.
was a surprise reveal. Yes.
Okay.
But what was I saying?
The size of the settlements, the
Man, it's not a good sign if I already lost my train of thought this early in the morning. I'm going to probably be senile by the end of the day.
Okay, so we were talking about the framework was Bank of America, Deutsche Bank. Now we have, JP Morgan, Deutsche Bank. Now we have Bank of America.
Yeah, so basically, because they have this pre-existing model that actually originated more with the Epstein estate settlement. That was when this same administrator has been used for all the subsequent settlements, and it's going to be used again for the Bank of America settlement. Simone Lelchuk was appointed, and I would love to speak to her at some point, but I've had difficulty. And that settlement from the Epstein estate was itself modeled, the organizers said, on prior kind of holistic settlement programs that are kind of a novel invention of the past maybe 20 or 30 years, having to do with 9/11 settlements, when families of people killed in 9/11 would sue the property manager of the World Trade Center.
Right.
Or the Jerry Sandusky scandal at Penn State in 2011, 2012. That also was addressed with a holistic settlement program where people could make essentially confidential claims and have those claims adjudicated in a non-adversarial setting where there's no downside reputational risk, because if you embellish something or dramatize something, it's not going to be publicly exposed per the court-approved terms of the settlement. So that was adopted for the Epstein settlement program after he dies, right? So libel laws no longer apply to a deceased person.
Right.
The estate has an incentive to come up with a comprehensive way in which to solve this flood of litigation in a one size fits all sort of fashion, so they're not wasting away addressing every individualized claim till the end of time.
Which, by the way, is what always happens when you have a big scandal. Like, remember the robo-signing global settlement, right? The whole idea of that is to get all
from the financial crisis, for
yeah,
the
like
mortgage-backed securities or whatever, right?
Yeah, where take your pick.
Fannie Mae, or was that some other firm?
No. That was all the different banks that had robos, whatever. It doesn't matter. But the idea is you want to. It's really for the wealthy people in the equation that you want to get all the liability dealt with in one blow, and so that way you don't have to have.
Which did not end up being the case with respect to the Epstein
exactly.
estate. In fact, it backfired spectacularly on the estate. I mean, the guys that run the estate are now being hauled before the House Oversight Committee just in the past couple of weeks. I actually haven't even got a chance to watch it yet, but the House Oversight Committee is doing these rolling depositions, right, of people who are seen to be implicated or involved in one way or another with Jeffrey Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell. So they had Bill Clinton, they had Bill Barr last fall, they had Acosta back. They even had Hillary Clinton for some reason, where Lauren Boebert was asking her about Pizzagate, literally. I mean, these people have made me come to sympathize with Hillary in a way that I would not have fathomed in the recent past. Because you just have to watch her and associate yourself with her, so derisively incredulous reaction to Lauren Boebert trying to browbeat her with questions about Pizzagate and UFOs and things. It just doesn't even make any sense. So Hillary, I guess, is my girl on this score anyway. And but regardless, they also have hauled recently these guys, Richard Darren Indyke, who was Epstein's in-house lawyer and is now one of the executors of the estate, and also Richard Kahn, who had a similar role. And they could be in some legal hot water, because. So I was able to speak to a bunch of these lawyers who have been in this main consortium that have been sort of generating this highly profitable industry for themselves. So David Boies from the Boies Schiller law firm, his associate Sigrid McCauley, who was basically the personal lawyer for Virginia Roberts Giuffre when she was alive. And then Bradley Edwards, who was the first guy to basically insinuate himself into the story back in 2008 when he first files a lawsuit or makes a complaint about Jeffrey Epstein's federal non-prosecution agreement, supposedly violating the Crime Victims' Rights Act, which was a novel statute at the time. So he had to come up with some novel theories for that. And now Bradley Edwards.
By the way, that's a whole separate story.
That's a whole separate story,
yeah.
which I've been meaning to like do a full. I know all the information that's relevant to it, but I haven't like taken the time to sit down and actually like synthesize all the problems with that. But I'll get to it eventually. Okay. And then Brittany Henderson, who is Bradley Edwards' former legal aide or like legal assistant for back in the day, and Cupid arrived, and they ended up having a fling and are now married happily. And Brittany Henderson was extremely pregnant. Not that that's particularly relevant. She was there. And Brittany Henderson was. So I was asking Edwards, right, about this letter that was submitted to the court by the Bank of America lawyers a few weeks ago, where they were asserting, in part based on comments that Edwards made in a podcast in February, that there is an ongoing federal criminal investigation into something to do with Jeffrey Epstein now, today, as of March of 2026. Because Bank of America was trying to argue that if there is a pending criminal investigation, that would necessitate the court granting them a stay for this ongoing civil litigation, because you can't compromise, per federal code or regulation, an ongoing federal criminal matter by way of a civil matter.
Right.
That argument was rejected, but the lawyer for Bank of America puts forward a at least tentatively plausible case that there is some kind of active criminal investigation going on. Number one, they point to a Truth Social that Trump put out last year, where he says, don't investigate me, investigate Bill Clinton, Reid Hoffman, and XYZ, investigate Democrats, meaning he's ordering the Jay Clayton, who's the Southern District of New York U.S. attorney, to investigate Democrats for their associations with Epstein. Then the next day, Trump will come out and say, "Oh, I actually really like Bill Clinton. He's a good guy. I'm sort of ticked off that he's even gotten wrapped up in this whole mess." So like Trump's all over the map. But Trump did put out that statement, and then also Edwards goes on some like survivor-oriented podcasts and says that the federal government had been asking him for information about who might be charged criminally further. So I want to ask Edwards about that, to elaborate. He kind of hedged a bit. He was saying he wasn't referring to any specific investigative query, but just like a general offer or invitation or requests by government officials for him to provide information as he comes across it.
Hold on a second. At Abaza 67, Matt Tiabi and Mike Tracy belong in jail. What do we belong in jail for?
I agree. For pedophilic sex trafficking.
For working with Elon Musk. That's interesting.
Well, I never worked with him. But I guess I'm inculpated now as a co-conspirator of yours. Working
with him. That's an interesting way of
associated. You were tied to him. You had connections.
I guess so. Mike Tracy belongs in jail for trying to cover up the Epstein story.
I agree. You belong in jail for misspelling both of our names somehow.
Yeah, exactly. Well, anyway, we'll come back to it. When you learn to spell our names, we'll return to that list.
Anyway, so Edwards gives sort of a little bit of a hedging answer on that, but then Brittany Henderson, his now wife, I believe, interjects and says, look, we got to go, but there should be prosecutions, even if we can't confirm that there are any that are ongoing. I say, okay, so who should be prosecuted? And you would think like the Epstein maximalists would assume that the people who she would imagine ought to be prosecuted would include these VIP people, Prince Andrew, Peter Thiel, whoever. But she says Epstein's accountants and lawyers. So she's talking about these Richard Kahn and Darren Indyke, who are hauled for like I think Indyke or Kahn was there for something like 6 hours or 4 to 6 hours, a long time. Okay. Where they're making statements on the record being questioned by the House Oversight Committee, the material from which could easily be used by an enterprising prosecutor to bring some kind of charge against them. I do think there is some outstanding legal liability here, because it would make sense politically for the Trump administration, right? They've got this big ongoing problem with the public perception being that they've covered up the Epstein files or they're not prosecuting anybody, and there obviously is so much prosecutable conduct that they could prosecute, but they're just choosing not to because they're in on the cover up, right? But why not get somebody's head? A low hanging fruit for them, I think, would be this lawyer or the lawyers and or accountants that work for the Epstein estate, and that's who Brittany Henderson suggested to me ought to still be prosecuted. So we should be mindful. We should be mindful that there could be. I mean, this is not an inactive story in terms of potential further legal developments. And Henderson and her, hubby Brad, they're in constant contact with the DOJ. Like, they were conferring all the time with the new acting attorney general, Todd Blanche, and also Jay Clayton, the U.S. attorney, who is saying we're going to investigate something in New York on behalf of their alleged victim clients, on whose behalf they were demanding the imposition of the most sweeping possible redactions to the Epstein files. And so, there's a bunch more material that I got from this thing. I had a surprisingly lengthy discussion with David Boies, who's still probably one of the most prominent lawyers in the.
Was it on the record? Are you able to talk about it? Okay. Did you say anything interesting?
I don't want to give too much away yet because I'm working on something. But let's just say that the argument that has been made for why Bank of America owes these purported survivors something like, what was it, 72 million, 71 and a half?
Yeah, 72.5.
Is even more laughably hazy than the arguments that have been made against Bank of America and Deutsche Bank, in part because, and I will sort of give this one away as a little treat for the listeners who tuned in so early, especially the West Coast listeners who are tuning in at the crack of dawn. Dave Boies, right? So in their initial complaint against Bank of America last October, they assert, Boies and Edwards assert, that there were thousands of victims, thousands of women and girls, they say, that were victimized by Jeffrey Epstein over the course of his orchestration of what they call a sex trafficking venture, because that's what it has to be classified as under the federal anti-trafficking statute, the Trafficking Victims Protection Act, which is another can of worms. That's from 2000, where trafficking was still conceived of as modern day slavery, meaning it's a form of enslavement mainly. That's what, if you look at Bill Clinton's signing statement when he signs that bill into law, at the urging of both feminist groups and Christian evangelical groups, interestingly enough, he's talking about it as the government needs new tools in its toolbox to go after this modern day slavery scourge, which conjures images of like little girls being held in captivity in, sex slave dungeons in Thailand or something, and then being, transported to the United States or Europe. Like, the prosecutors needed more methods to deal with that.
Just to back up for a second, there is actually a thing like the old white slaving concept. It's not always white people, but there is a thing where people are transported from country to country, have their passports taken away by, like a mafia group, or in some cases, it's like domestic servants, right? Mm-hmm. They're not sex slaves; they're domestics who are essentially controlled. Like, that does happen. There is a thing like that, but you're right. They massively expanded the concept of
I've always said I'm not comprehensively familiar with the lay of the land in Thailand or India or Bangladesh, where I would not be surprised at all if stuff that is akin to what people had traditionally conceived of as sex trafficking does go on. Okay, but in the United States, where I happen to live and be a citizen, I'm more familiar with the lay of the land. And despite this almost now ubiquitous belief that there's this widespread chronic child sex trafficking, if you actually ever drill down to the details, there's virtually never an instance of when that's actually takes place at scale. Like, you could find like a handful of outlier incidents now and then. Like, remember this guy in Ohio who was found to have like kept these girls in his basement for like 20 years or something, and they escaped in 2016. I forget the guy's name now. So every now and then, like an outlier thing like that will come up. But in terms of like a systematic, wide-scale, organized child sex trafficking ring, it just doesn't happen to any appreciable degree in the United States. I'm not making any statement about India or any place else. Here,
remember the story about the couple that kept a young woman in a box under their bed?
In a box under their bed.
Keep going. I'll find
refresh my memory.
Yeah.
But so anyway, it's amazing. Like, if you want to talk about concept creep, this is like concept creep on steroids, and then poured with jet fuel and lit on fire and then sent in a rocket to Mars or something, in terms of how the contours of what is understood to be sex trafficking have grown over the years. And I had the meeting to write something on this. I have something that's half written on this that I'll put out eventually, because like you can find the most just mind-blowing examples in recent years of sex trafficking getting charged as sex trafficking for conduct that no sane person would have ever even had the faintest notion could constitute sex trafficking in the past. So just one quick example, okay? So this Trafficking Victims Protection Act, which is the main like federal statute that gets invoked. By the way, the Mann Act also sometimes gets invoked. That's the white slavery law from like the 1920s or something, 1910s maybe.
That was the big federal crime that the FBI used to. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, but it got sort of supplanted by the TVPA as of 2000, which is what Congress routinely updates and adds amendments to and whatever. So a couple years ago, Harvey Weinstein, was sued for having supposedly committed a sex trafficking offense. And what was the offense that was alleged against Harvey Weinstein? It was that one year he attended the Cannes Film Festival in France, and a lady who was an aspiring actress was invited to his hotel room and came to the hotel room. She alleges that over the course of the hotel room liaison, something sexually untoward took place. And she sued him for sex trafficking because she claims that he had suggested that he could help her get a movie role, and therefore a thing of value was exchanged for what she had alleged was an untoward sexual act. And
how is that not just solicitation?
Good question. And this was a novel theory that was introduced by her lawyers. I think it was in federal court in California that this action was filed to assert that this could constitute sex trafficking or an offense under the federal anti-sex trafficking statute. But the judge ruled that the lawsuit could proceed. So he validated the theory that that set of facts could rise to the level of sex trafficking. So that's what we're talking about now in terms of what could be legally characterized as sex trafficking. And I can give you a million other examples of increasingly more absurd cases. So anyway, back to the Bank of America thing yesterday. That's sort of the context, because now in 2026, all bets are off in terms of like anything you could throw at the wall and see what sticks, and it's sex trafficking. But this is even more, I think, instructive as to the Epstein story, because one thing I was trying to pinpoint these lawyers on is, okay, I mean, we're all being told constantly that we're in the throes of the most world historic pedophilia crisis that ever bedeviled mankind. But my understanding is that in the time period when the claimants can say that they were victimized by Epstein and then file a claim pursuant to the class action settlement. So from June of 2008, when he pleads guilty in Florida, up to when he's arrested federally in July of 2019, there was never even any allegation made. Forget validated or verified, never even an allegation made in any kind of formal process, including civilly, when the standards are obviously astronomically lower than a criminal allegation, that Epstein ever had any illicit sexual contact with anybody under the age of 18 between 2005 and 2019, right? So this Bank of America settlement covers the period of 2008 to 2019. So I was asking them, okay, so you said in your complaint that thousands of women and girls were victimized by Epstein, and that's what's giving you this impetus to file this action against Bank of America. And yet none of the even conceivable victims that we know of could have been minor. I mean, forget like actual children, even minors, right? Even statutory minors during this period when you're saying that that Bank of America was culpable for facilitating somehow Epstein's sex trafficking venture. And Edwards and Boyce both pretty much confirm that, although they say, look, we don't know the full scope of the victim, so maybe some more will come forward, but they don't have any evidence that any victimization took place in the United States of a person under the age of 18 during the period that is covered by this Bank of America settlement. Now, when it gets reported in the media, what's the instant association that people make with, okay, breaking news headline, Bank of America settles for this big amount of money? That must mean the pedophilic predation was even more rampant than we ever could have imagined, right?
And this was Jed Rakoff is the judge in this case, right?
Yep.
So he's one of the best judges in the country, or has a reputation. That's what's so weird. He has a reputation of being a very strict, fair, exacting jurist.
He's kind of funny too. Like, he made some wisecracks and stuff that I actually chuckled at during the hearing.
But to allow this, and he's famous for.
You want to hear the wisecrack? Okay, so this is like, you're not going to. The transcript takes like 60 days or 90 days to come out, so you're not even going to get this unless you were in the room. The wisecrack that was, so they were scheduling the next hearing for the next phase of finalizing the settlement. It was for August, right? August 20th, I think it was. And David Boyce says, Judge, I apologize, but I'm scheduled to go to I'm scheduled to go to Africa with my family on August 20th. Can we schedule it for a week later, perhaps August 27th? And Judge Rakoff says, although I can't endorse you going on, I can't endorse your like sojourn on an African excursion, I will entertain the request. And everybody laughs. And then he asked Bradley Edwards if he's available for August 27th. And Judge Rakoff says, like, you won't be in Antarctica that day, will you? So that's pretty good.
That's very judgy humor. I like that.
It was.
Yeah.
Inoffensive, but still, clever enough to make you sort of smile.
So, okay.
Why is Rakoff seen as a what is your understanding of why he's seen as a very good judge?
So, among other things, during the financial crisis, he got fed up with the banks getting off too easy on a lot of these settlements. Remember, there was this period where they were doing settlements that were like sort of side room deals between plaintiffs and the banks, and they would go into effect, and the judges wouldn't even have to sign off on them, essentially, right? Or they would blindly sign off on them. And
how could the judge not have to sign off on them?
Well, normally the judges in the middle of the negotiations and at the end at least approves or disapproves.
Right.
Under the Eric Holder era, they did a bunch of deals that were just sort of ex parte agreements.
Okay,
and it just went through.
There's it's like an independent arbitration that the court presumptively affords with enough credibility that they don't have to weigh in at each step.
Right. And in one case, two parties got together, and it might even have been Bank of America or Citigroup. It was one of those. It was one of those banks. He got pissed off and said, "No, this is too good a deal for the bank, and I want you to go back and rework it and come out with a real agreement that sort of fits the numbers more closely." And he had a lot of criticisms for how the problem of, for instance, a company gets caught committing fraud, promises never to do it again, does the same thing again 2 weeks later, gets the same penalty, promises not to do it again, right? Like the same small penalty. He didn't do that. He wrote a book about this. So he was sort of briefly in the limelight as.
I think he's a professor at Columbia or something like that. So he's pretty public facing in terms of expounding his jurisprudential thoughts.
Yeah, I've talked to him a bunch of times. He's a as judges go, he's a smart, learned guy, obviously
affable.
Yeah, but in this case though, but the problem is exactly what you're talking about. You have these gigantic headlines, and people will presume that certain kinds of conduct happened when they didn't. And I just don't understand why judges would sign off on that without looking into the particulars or demanding that the language be changed. Or
yeah, well, I mean, one area where I will give Rakoff some very partial credit is that he did make a point to stipulate that he takes very seriously his obligation to monitor the reasonability of the pool of class action claimants and monitor it so that it doesn't go beyond the limits of what has been rightly settled. So in other words, and then he actually said, because of the political notoriety of this issue, he says there could be a temptation for anybody who was ever remotely associated with Epstein to have claims filed against them, even if they were not complicit in the sex trafficking venture. Because if you look at the wording of the settlement language, it is as generic as saying anybody. I could pull it up. Yeah, I should pull it up. Actually,
why don't you pull it up? Because and I'll make the point quickly while you do that. So
okay, I got it.
You got it? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so on March 15th, 2026, the parties reached a settlement in principle of this litigation. The negotiated settlement terms included the following settlement class definition. Quote, all women who were sexually abused or trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein or by any person who is connected to or otherwise associated with Jeffrey Epstein or any Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking venture between June 30th, 2008, which happens to be the date that he entered his guilty plea. I got a whole theory as to why that date was chosen. That doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, but and July 6, 2019, which is the date of his arrest, right? This includes, but is not limited to, and this is the same language from the previous settlements, girls under the age of 18 who engaged in sexual contact with Epstein and or a person connected to or otherwise associated with Epstein and received money or something else of value in exchange for engaging in that sexual contact. 2, women aged 18 or older who were forced, coerced, and or defrauded into engaging in sexual contact by Epstein and or anyone connected to Epstein or otherwise associated with Epstein by, for example, using physical force, threatening harm or legal action, making a false promise, or causing them to believe that not engaging in sexual contact would result in harm. So the people would think to themselves intuitively, okay, yeah, using physical force or threatening harm, that seems more defensible, right? That seems fairly sort of on the surface anyway, defensible. But then the inclusion of the making a false promise clause there, that's the kicker, because that's so nebulous now. And it could be asserted in hindsight, right? So actually, I asked David Boyce about this. Does the purported victim have to have had any contemporaneous consciousness that a false promise had been made to them that had then impelled them to engage in some kind of sexual activity as an adult with Epstein and or one of Jeffrey Epstein's associates or somebody connected to him,
or a venture,
yeah, a venture like it's a I don't know, a laundromat or something,
right? Or a surf band. But anyway, go ahead. Yeah.
but Boyce clarifies that, you know, by its very nature, there couldn't have been contemporaneous knowledge of the false promise, because you'd only discovered that the promise was false well after the fact. So they set this up where it explicitly enables the proliferation of all these claims with outrageous hindsight bias, because people can say, oh, look, there's money available. Now I can sort of recast things that happened 10, 20, or 25 years before as having been a false promise. And what could a false promise be? It could be as something as sort of mild as,
I'll get you a job at X.
Or not even that. The impression could have been vaguely given the alleged victim claims that Epstein was going to do something for them.
Right.
Including, it could have included paying for a college tuition, which he did.
Which he did do, yeah.
Which he did.
By the way, yeah.
Or, subsidizing their living expenses, which he often did. But, maybe some girls had different experiences from others, and maybe it all didn't come the same way exactly. But even it could be like a personal thing, like they thought that they were going to be his girlfriend or something.
Right.
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 So that clause is structured such that it is intended to, it's designed to expressly enable this sort of retrofitting of decades old events.
Okay, but Michael, help us out. How do you get from that to Bank of America? What's the claim against Bank of America?
It's hard to even follow. I'd be shocked if Judge Rakoff could even follow it, because actually the initial lawsuit was filed again simultaneously against both Bank of America and Bank of New York Mellon. So they sued two banks in October of 2025. Judge Rakoff actually tossed out the Bank of America portion, Bank of New York portion, because it was so untenable that it didn't even meet the bare minimum standards that would have been necessary to kind of authorize further action against one of these institutions in the name of getting justice for Epstein victims, right? And then he also tossed out like the majority of the claims that have been made against Bank of America, but he let like two of them proceed, and that was enough to give rise to the settlement. So the idea is that
it's like an
personal bank accounts
Yeah.
were created. This isn't even like the JP Morgan thing where Jeffrey Epstein actually did have a sort of a VIP account at JP Morgan for a number of years, and also Deutsche Bank. This is alleged victims apparently opening personal bank accounts like checking accounts with Bank of America, and money would be transferred to them by somebody associated with Epstein. They would deposit the money in the account, and for some reason, Bank of America should have been privy to that being in furtherance of a sex trafficking venture, because they should have known. This is why they dated to June 30th, 2008, when he enters the guilty plea. That's the date after which it's asserted that Bank of America should have known or should have done due diligence to discover that continuing to allow accounts to be open that are in any way connected to Jeffrey Epstein was in furtherance of a sex trafficking venture. And these bank lawyers are such squishes, and they don't care. They have such like cash reserves available for litigation.
Exactly. This is the part that people don't get, but go ahead.
Yeah, that they barely even tried to contest it. I mean, they did sort of a perfunctory motion to dismiss. They did send that letter where the lawyer asserts that that there's this ongoing criminal investigation, and that's why the litigation should be stayed. But they pretty much give up in pretty short order. It was actually a much more truncated process than the JP Morgan and Deutsche Bank, which is ironic because the case is much weaker for Bank of America than it would have been for JP Morgan and Deutsche Bank, although I think those cases were pretty weak as well. But they did. But who wants to prolong litigation about the supposed culpability of Bank of America in enabling the widespread pedophilic rape of vulnerable children, even though we're not talking about any children at all, but that's how it's going to get portrayed, right? And then it's going to generate probably regulatory interest in Congress, because you got all these ongoing panels and investigations going on, right, with Ron Wyden and whoever else. And so they just cut their losses and settle. And what was amazing to me is that Bank of America had two lawyers there, and they didn't seem like senior lawyers to me. They seemed like women, maybe in
I've seen that too. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Their late 30s, early 40s, probably. So, and they were outnumbered like threefold by the consortium of lawyers in the Epstein Survivors Inc. squad. So what does that tell you in terms of like balance of power? Might not be quite the right way to put it, but like in terms of, I don't know, like where like the actual litigating energy is. It's almost like they just almost like it's almost like Bank of America just like threw a bone to them and dispatched like maybe some more junior lawyers to just see what they could do, but like time limited it to like 2 or 3 months, and then whatever happens. And so, and because of the fecklessness of these banks, and I'm not a fan of Bank of America by any stretch, right?
No,
it's just that in settling, they perpetuate what is fundamentally, in my view, a fictitious and hysteria fomenting narrative that has all the political and legal and cultural downside repercussions that we've discussed before.
Yeah, and look, most of the biggest banks in the world could not exist if they weren't doing lots of business with plainly illegal ventures, right? If they weren't acting as depository institutions for individuals and or companies that have shaky records or have connections that they're supposed to send a SAR, a suspicious activity report about. This is something that I learned when I was covering HSBC a million years
ago. And Wyden's
ago.
complained about that not having been done adequately vis-a-vis Epstein's banking habits.
Right. Wyden's complaining about?
Yeah, Ron Wyden has his own like almost personal investigation that he's actually, to his credit, has been going on even pre-Trump. So I think he started in 2023 with respect to Epstein, just in terms of him trying to like track down the financial transactions or whatever.
Yeah, and this is the last thing I'll say on this is, it is true that the bank's compliance with the AML, the anti-money laundering, the anti-crime responsibility that they have. Like they're supposed to review all their accounts and make sure, at least do some superficial investigations into where the money comes from. And they don't. They basically pretend to, like, they have these big centers where people look through the accounts, but they really don't do a whole lot of work. This has come out in multiple whistleblower complaints over the years. But the problem is, when you settle for something like this, you're admitting to conduct or implicitly that now fuels more headlines. So
I'll be following the Bank of America shambolic little thing, and we'll see where it goes. Matt, I wanted to ask you, were you devastated when you heard the news that Pam Bondi, as Laura Loomer very rudely used to call her, Pam Blondie, was unceremoniously ousted by her favorite president, Donald J. Trump? Because I know my very first instinct, because I heard about it on the way out of the court.
Did you weep into your shirt?
Well, my first instinct was to tell Grok to make an AI image of Jeffrey Epstein smiling down from heaven. So I instantly tweeted out just an image of a very sort of heavenly looking.
We have to get that.
We could pull. Am I able to screen share on this thing?
Yeah, you are. You just send it to our Mr. Producer.
Okay. Mr. Producer or Mr. StreamYard should figure out how I could actually screen share, because I still think I'm not an administrator that gives me screen sharing privileges, and you want to make sure that you see everything on my screen. So I'll send you the memes that I
so my favorite part of that story was the way Trump did it. I think it's time. I think that
in the limo, while they were in the limo on the 2-minute drive from the White House to the Supreme Court, where Trump for some reason decided he was going to be the first sitting president, I think ever, or in recent history anyway, to attend a Supreme Court session on his birthright citizenship order.
Yeah, he wanted to look menacing, I guess, in the gallery. But somebody who became famous for saying "you're fired" has added 2 words. There we go. I don't know.
And then there's one more.
He needs to be looking down a little bit more. Go ahead. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I know. You take what you can get with the AI image generators. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty funny enough. And there's one more that I just sent Mr. Producer, if you wouldn't mind.
Let's see. Bye, Felicia. Yeah, I mean, look. It's a little weird that the order of some of these firings. I'm not quite sure I understand the political reasoning behind some of them. I mean, if they were going to try to disassociate themselves from the Epstein thing, I would have thought she would have gone earlier, but whatever, who knows. There was also the matter of his speech this week.
The political timing is weird in a number of ways, right? Because he finally gives this long-awaited speech on the Iran war, where he's going to spell out in prime time the objectives and what the reason is that the U.S. is even doing this, and what's going to be accomplished. Yeah, and then the next morning he just kind of preempts that and decides, hey, today would be a good day to fire my attorney general.
Yeah. Okay. Let's look at slide 11 here and see what. Let's look at the speech part for a second. But you're right. That is weird. Maybe it's a little bit burying the lead with Bondi. I don't know. Well, let's see.
As we speak this evening, it's been just 1 month since the United States military began Operation Epic Fury, targeting the world's #1 state sponsor of terror, Iran. In these past 4 weeks, our armed forces have delivered swift, decisive, overwhelming victories on the battlefield. Victories like few people have ever seen before. Tonight, Iran's Navy is gone. Their Air Force is in ruins. Their leaders, most of them, terrorist regime they led, are now dead. Their command and control of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is being decimated as we speak. Their ability to launch missiles and drones is dramatically curtailed, and their weapons, factories, and rocket launchers are being blown to pieces. Very few of them left. Never in the history of warfare has an enemy suffered such clear and devastating large-scale losses in a matter of weeks. Our enemies are losing, in America, as it has been for 5 years under my presidency, is winning, and now winning bigger than ever before.
Okay, all right.
Winning so much, we're tired of winning. So a couple of thoughts on this. First of all, he's getting the raspy old man Biden-like voice, and this was at 9 p.m. So maybe it's getting a little late for him. Remember, Biden would have his schedule coordinated so that he would only be doing stuff between like 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. or something.
Yeah. Well, they have to do the industrial strength uppers routine. I'm sorry, I can't say that. Fictionally, if we were to have a president who was sundowning, that would be the right time to do it.
And because I mean, Trump is the oldest president ever elected. As of both, so Trump was the oldest president ever elected in 2016. Then Biden became the oldest president ever elected in 2020. Then Trump again became the oldest president ever elected once again in 2024, and he's closing in on 80. He's going to turn 80, the big 80, in June. So that seems like, as we saw with Biden, that's right around the time where if there's going to be a precipitous decline, that would probably be it for somebody in their elder years. So I think that's worth being mindful of. Obviously, it's impossible to psychologically diagnose really much of anything beyond what we can observe. And it's even harder to like connect it necessarily to like a military action, for example, but it is a bit of, I think, necessary context, because so much of this seems to be personally driven by Trump, whether it's megalomania or his own preoccupations or grudges, or he thinks Iran was trying to assassinate him, whatever it might be. It definitely flows from Trump as the principal, and the second administration was organized in such a way that it would be tailored to enabling him to best like fulfill his truest desires, unlike in the first administration, right, when there was some bureaucratic roadblocks and personnel issues that were sort of hindering him. This is like pure Trump to the degree that it could ever be achieved. And if the war planning is, if like the extent of the war planning is basically just whatever's bouncing around inside his adult brain on any given day, then you do unfortunately have to take into account what could be going on in terms of his aging process. But maybe a little bit more substantively in that speech, first of all, he says we're going to bomb Iran to the Stone Age. Okay, that's what he says. Then Hegseth, for his dutifully tweets, bomb them to the Stone Age. Like they're just like super excited about bombing Iran to the Stone Age. And they're excited about talking. They're excited by talking like they're 13-year-old boys, shooting the shit, and behind the high school or something. And Trump also says at one point, you other nations who use the Strait of Hormuz far more than the United States does, because we only have a very small amount of our fuel that ever gets transited through that strait. You other nations that are more reliant on it, it should be very easy for you right now. Just go and take the Strait of Hormuz. But then he says, in like almost the same breath, because like now he's like contradicting himself almost within the span of the same sentence sometimes. Then he says, although the Strait of Hormuz will just open up naturally. So maybe they don't have to go and take it because it's going to open up naturally, I guess, just by the force of our overwhelming military victory. And I don't know. I don't know if you saw Seymour Hersh yesterday, and
No,
Look, I
what did
mean,
he say?
well, he was actually pretty much on the mark predicting the timing of
Yeah, he
the
was.
Midnight
Yep.
Hammer bombing
And
in
then,
June of last year.
mhm,
He didn't get the full scope of it quite right, but like he was directionally right.
mhm.
He says that as of yesterday, April 2nd, his understanding is that the ground operation has been initiated in some form or fashion. So there you have it.
Well, that's we should definitely take
But
that
Trump
into
says it's
consideration.
it's gonna be another 2 or 3 weeks at most, which is what they said 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. And look, that whole thing about how no country has ever suffered as much in such a short period of time. Dresden comes to mind. I don't know. Hiroshima, Nagasaki, like not sure about that statement.
Just how about I mean, World War II, of course, gets valorized and mythologized, and I'm not one of these kind of like weird sort of crypto whatever revisionists where I'm doing it because I want to like make a point about world Jewry or something. But I do think there's been a lot of mythology around World War II, and it still gets invoked constantly to justify whatever the U.S. military is doing in the present day, because they want to ascribe the current military operations with the same kind of moral unimpeachability as people remember World War II to have had. But look at the bombings of the fire bombings of German cities.
That's what I meant, Dresden.
Yeah, yeah, Dresden, and there were a bunch of other cities that people can't even call to mind. I forget the names now. I would have, if you asked me 3 years ago, I would have remembered. There were more casualties in the firebombing, the totally unnecessary in terms of achieving military objectives, firebombing of Tokyo, than there were that caused by the atomic bombs in Nagasaki and Hiroshima. So, I mean, give me a break. I mean, this stuff is crazy. Actually, Rubio says that Rubio brought up his own World War II parallel recently on Hannity, where of course, he's the Henry Kissinger hybrid role of national security advisor and Secretary of State. Remember when Trump like reshuffled Mike Waltz out of the national security advisor job into the UN, and the thought at the time was that there's going to eventually be a standalone appointment to the national security advisor position, and then like a year later, and I think Trump seems pretty content with Rubio in his hybrid role. But Rubio was on Hannity saying what Iran's doing with the Strait of Hormuz is just like what the Nazis did in World War II. Meaning, he said the Nazis would target commercial shipping in the North Atlantic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so like that's the same moral prism through which we should now view the mullahs in Iran, as though the United States did not also target commercial shipping over the course of World War II. I mean, I had seen this before, but I pulled it up. There's like the military itself does studies of its own activity in theaters of war, and they tallied up after World War II all the commercial vessels that they destroyed on the high seas. But according to Rubio, that's only something that the Nazis do, and we should tie the Nazis to Iran.
Oh, but wasn't he talking about the pre-war attacks on?
He didn't really specify, I don't think.
Because I always thought that was well, it wasn't.
Maybe it's what he's referring to, but in any event, it's like not the
either
most
way
cogent analogy in terms of the historical substance.
So two things quickly. He also said, this is a classic Trump quote, I also want to thank our troops for the masterful job they did in taking the country of Venezuela in a matter of minutes.
Taking it. So it's now ours.
Yeah.
It's the property of the United States, property of the USA, like, on the shipping containers.
Right. Yeah, you could put a little stamp with that font on it. At Steckman7 says Watergate seems so mild compared to what has happened since January 2025. I'm going to slightly disagree on that one. Watergate wasn't. It's now popular to say it was an inconsequential scandal. I don't think it was.
It was consequential.
When the president of the United States or when the party in power wiretaps the other party, I think that's pretty significantly bad, right?
And then he tries to get like the CIA and FBI to sort of maneuver against one another to like sweep it under the rug. I read the biography a few years ago of Spiro Agnew, who was Richard Nixon's first vice president. He was a former governor of Maryland.
Yep.
And he was actually a very prolific and talented writer. After he had to resign the vice presidency.
So was G. Gordon Liddy, by the way, but go ahead.
Well, I hadn't known this about Agnew until, for whatever reason, I got into a rabbit hole a few years ago, and I read his biography. And after he resigned the vice presidency for like just kind of rehashed tax stuff from back when he was governor of Maryland, and like kind of local, possibly real, but like sort of run of the mill corruption claims about, favorable contracts being handed out to political cronies and whatever, like not something that was particularly mind-blowing in terms of the actual conduct, and it ended up getting resurfaced by one of these independent prosecutors, who did have like a political vendetta against the Nixon administration, sort of like the Southern District of New York having a vendetta against Trump in the first administration under like Preet Bharara or Jeffrey Berman. But anyway, Nixon, according to Agnew's telling of it, Nixon throws Agnew under the bus, meaning requires him, tells him he must resign because he thinks that's going to cover his own hide. Nixon does. And Agnew is anguished about this because he had for the longest time said that he wanted to give Nixon the benefit of the doubt as to Watergate. He thought maybe the media really was overhyping it, or there was a politically driven, but he came to the painful conclusion that it was more serious than he had entertained. And he's pretty scathing about it, and including some of the underhanded tactics that Nixon used to kind of like prod him out. And so it's actually pretty interesting. I forget the name of the book now, but you could easily find it. It's for free on the Internet Archive website. But yeah, so I mean, I agree in that. I mean, Watergate's complicated. Some aspects of it are exaggerated, just in terms of like what the folklore conception of it. But I do think it's like worse than Watergate's the cliche that should be retired. Like during the Bush administration, John Dean, who like nobody knows as having accomplished anything in life other than when he was in his early 30s, he was this staffer in the White House under Nixon.
Yeah, lawyer.
And he's always declaring something as worse than Watergate and like selling books with the subtitle "Worse Than Watergate." So I remember he would be like on Keith Olbermann constantly in like 04 or something, 05 with screaming something under Bush. Like Abu Ghraib or something was worse than Watergate, which maybe it was on some level. I mean, it's hard to make a one-to-one comparison, but like it's a cliche that maybe just in like let's get a better sort of frame of reference for stuff that's going on in 2026.
Well, the reason Watergate is the paradigmatic scandal is because it's the only one that's actually, well, I guess
because of the suffix now that gets thrown onto everything.
Yeah, and it chased the president
Pizzagate
from office.
Pizzagate. I mean, like that. It's because of Watergate that we call this thing Pizzagate or Signalgate or Partygate,
Russiagate. What was the Lincoln? Was there a Lincoln bedroom one? What were some of the Clinton era
Travelgate? I think
Travelgate.
That was Clinton. It's endless.
Yeah.
Hey Matt, before we move on to the tournament, can we just show the clip of Todd Blanche on Jesse Waters last night, because Todd Blanche is now the new acting attorney general. My suspicion is that Trump is actually going to eventually want him to become the permanent attorney general. I mean, he's going to go for the confirmation hearings and get voted on to be the permanent replacement for Bondi. But now he's the acting attorney general. And this was an amazing exchange last night. If you haven't seen it,
do we have it?
Yeah, it's up. It's up.
It's up. Oh, okay, here we go.
Now, the Epstein files, you'd agree, not handled well?
And I don't, first of all, I have never heard President Trump say that the attorney general that anything that happened to her had anything to do with the Epstein files. And so look, the Epstein files has been a saga that's lasted for the past year. And what happened when the president signed the Transparency Act is the Department of Justice has now released all the files with respect to the Epstein saga. And the Attorney General Bondi and I appeared in front of Congress voluntarily a couple weeks ago to answer any questions they had. We have made every single congressman, senator available to come and see any document, redacted, unredacted, that they want. And so I think that to the extent that the Epstein files was a part of the past year of this Justice Department, it should not be a part of anything going forward.
Okay, well, I mean, you've combed through these files, right? Who was Epstein spying for?
Look, I don't know that he was spying for anybody. Nobody's ever said that.
No? You don't think he might have been a spy for a foreign country?
I have no idea if he was a spy. All I know is that we don't have any evidence in the Epstein files that the FBI collected over 15 years that suggests that, Jesse. I don't know. I wasn't part of the original prosecution team. Neither was Attorney General Bondi. And I can tell you this, there's only one president that's held Mr. Epstein accountable, and that's Donald J. Trump. During his first administration, that was the administration that prosecuted him. And during this administration, it's the administration that's been totally transparent and released all the files. And no matter how much criticism people want to make about the Epstein files, that is indisputable. It's undisputable that nobody talked about the Epstein files for 4 years during Biden, 4 years. And so when President Trump said, let's release the Epstein files, and the law was passed that allowed us to legally do it, we did it.
Okay. I'm not sure you totally get what people feel about that, but I want to move on.
I'm not sure you totally get what people feel about that.
Vibes. You're not getting the vibes. You know what's so amazing about that clip?
I mean, I've always thought, oh, okay, never mind. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I just, Jesse Waters usually doesn't do that.
I know. That's why it's so weird.
Yeah.
Fox News, based on everything I've been able to glean, very seldom brings up Epstein in relation to Trump. When on occasion something will come up in relation to a Democrat, they will go wild over it. Like when Bill and Hillary Clinton gave depositions a few weeks ago, it was big time coverage on Fox News.
Yeah, but they still tend not to leave planet Earth in terms of what they're talking about.
I know.
Right.
But so Jeffrey, I was gonna say Jeffrey Epstein. Jesse Waters clearly doesn't believe Todd Blanche there, and Todd Blanche chose to go on to Jesse Waters to give his first interview as the new acting attorney general. He gets perhaps blindsided, although he can competently answer the question well enough, with questions about Epstein right off the bat, and not just any questions, but Jesse Waters asks him, "Okay, so who was he spying for?" Jesse Waters is presuming that it's established that we just know that Jeffrey Epstein must have been a spy for some foreign country. He doesn't specify which one, conspicuously enough.
We all know which one he's talking about, but go ahead.
I mean, perhaps. I mean, I assume he's maybe consumed some Tucker content still from his former colleague. And then Blanche has to give this sort of haphazard answer where he says, I don't know that he was spying for anybody. Nobody has ever said that. Well, hold on a second. Record scratch. There are a lot of people who are saying that. Meaning there are a lot of people who are influential in the media who are saying stuff to that effect. So maybe he's saying nobody ever said that in terms of like the government.
I heard that as nobody in the government.
I know, but I'm just like noting that, if we want to be a little bit literalistic about it, lots of people are saying that, which is why the question was asked by Jesse Waters. Like people do want to know this. And so I just wrote a little piece that's not yet up for Unheard, where I'm just sort of making the point that, like, okay, so Todd Blanche is more personally competent than Pam Bondi, no doubt about it. Bondi, okay, you could cancel me for sexism, but she was just a bimbo. I mean, it was a shambles of a tenure of attorney general. But a little bit of a modest improvement in PR performance is not going to solve the underlying problem for the Trump administration, because they can't actually forthrightly address the fallaciousness of the premises that are underlying the public anger or fascination with the Jeffrey Epstein story, because then what happens? They'll get accused of defending. It's just politically untenable. Yeah. So instead, Blanche just has to resort to making these weird statements about nobody's ever said, like, nobody who suspects that Jeffrey Epstein was a spy for Israel or any other country is going to be convinced by that answer that Blanche gave. Not least because it is true that Blanche was previously Donald Trump's personal attorney, personal criminal attorney in the New York Stormy Daniels quote unquote hush money trial and so forth. So everything that he says is going to be seen through the prism of his personal subservience to Trump, whether fair or not. And so my point is that they haven't solved the problem at all just by making maybe a minor upgrade from somebody who was bumbling around constantly without knowing what she was doing to somebody who's a bit more seasoned and professional in his presentation.
Okay, I mean, I would say, how would you want an attorney to answer that question? Because
that's about how I would expect.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, the only thing you could really say is, we don't have any evidence, or I haven't seen any evidence that he spied for anyone, right? But what's interesting about that moment, though, is when Jesse says, I don't think you're in touch with how people feel about this, the idea that you're supposed to play along with
How do you
the,
feel?
well, everyone knows that this became it becomes a thing in scandals now where people just sort of assume, and you're I guess officials are supposed to just play along with it because otherwise it's dangerous from a media standpoint. But
I've got a feeling. I'm feeling Epstein files. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I love Michael's musical interludes, dude.
I can't help myself. I have like Tourette's.
Do you play guitar at all? We got to get you something.
A little bit.
Or with a harmonica. That's what we need. We need to get you a
guitar, a little bit of keyboard, but nothing. I'm not going to be going on tour.
All right. Well, maybe,
although I would like to perform that "Paying Taxes to Pedophiles" song. With
what?
Country western band. If we never played that, actually, we got to play that at some point.
Totally, and maybe you can play the keyboards. I'll play the drums. It'll be the worst performance in history.
I think you should play the flute, and I'll play the accordion.
Hey, my hero Weird Al Yankovic would not approve of joking about the accordion. All right, so this is a good segue into the penultimate round of March Media Madness, America's Worst Podcaster. We have two matchups left. We have some absolutely crazy fucking video from this week from the podcast world. But I think we're going to
podcast creatures were lively and active this week in their little habitat.
There was some particularly loony stuff, but we're gonna.
Oh, by the way, Matt, commenters gave us more examples of gate suffixes that I'm surprised we forgot. Inflategate, which is obviously the scandal.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
And then Billygate, which is a throwback.
Yeah.
Oh, Deflategate. That's right.
Yeah.
The commenters said Inflategate, but you're right. It was Deflategate.
Yeah.
And then Billygate, which I think was Jimmy Carter's brother, right?
Yeah. His brother with
farm or whatever.
Yep.
Some business holding that he had. So those
Billy Beer. Those were good ones. Shit. There's more that we're forgetting.
I'm sure there's plenty more. Yeah.
We should look and see what they're doing. But okay. So the two matchups are Breaking Points versus Don Lemon and Megan.
I think
Megyn
we screwed
Kelly.
up when we with the matchups last week because we said it was Don Lemon versus Megyn Kelly. I think we were like misreading the bracket structure.
Yeah, probably.
So we gave people are so disappointed because I think they were eagerly anticipating the Don Lemon versus Megyn matchup, and we're not throwing them for a loop.
Yeah, is that how it's supposed to go? I don't know.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. We're gonna do Breaking Points v Megan, and then we're gonna. I'm not sorry. Breaking Points v Lemon, and then Megyn Kelly, who really is through the Final Four through no fault of her own. It was sort of a seeding accident. She's up against Joe Rogan. So we'll start with Breaking Points. Crystal and Saga were actually on relatively good behavior this week, but they had a couple of things to say that were interesting. So let's start with SOT 7 here.
I do have to level with people on this. This will not be easy.
Will not be easy. He's prepping them all for a crisis ahead, but he's still saying we're not joining the war. And he keeps saying, right. I just, it is all I ever wanted was a leader who would say things, and I'm not even sure he means it, when he's like, I will always act in Britain's national interest. Why is that so hard to find here in the United States? And to see the Euros saying stuff like this, again, the most globalist people on the planet, you're like, wow, what exactly have we done? But it's...
Well, they have no choice.
Exactly.
I mean, they really have no choice.
They don't have a choice. They can't join the war. I will note on this one, I could see it both ways as a UFO person. The drone swarms over nuclear bases is like UFO, like it goes back for decades. Mm-hmm. This has happened multiple times. The Strategic Air Command, specifically the nuclear arsenal, seems to be monitored. But when you combine all these things together, the fact that we're in a time of war, you also have to ask the main reason why normal national security officials who are not UFO people at all ever got involved in the story, people like Rubio and others, is people in the Air Force and in the Army kept coming to them and go, no, you don't get it. Like, there are drones hovering over our bases. There are things that are just monitoring what we're doing. And they're like, oh my God, this could be Russia or China. Now, the more they dig, it's not Russia or China. This one, I actually could see a situation where this one is Russia or China, specifically also because they're the ones who were helping Iran. Remember the whole Chinese weather balloon situation? It's not like you would put this out of character for all of them, but if you put it all together, it's very mysterious and it's scary. And for those who think I'm a kook, it doesn't just have to be UFO related. Do you know how many nuclear scientists that we've killed in Iran with the Israelis? The Israelis are bragging about it right now, how they've killed 2 missing nuclear scientists already. Didn't I just read earlier in the A block, we hit a specific part of Tehran University?
Ooh, we don't have blocks, Michael.
That's for. It's from military nuclear related research. So this is a campaign which, I mean, it's very Manhattan Project, kind of Oppenheimer, where it could be UFO related. It also could be related here.
Wait, sorry, I might have zoned out for a second. We don't have what blocks? What is he saying?
No. He said he mentioned an A block. It's a TV thing.
Oh, A block. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Right. We should have just like totally arbitrary and unnecessary blocks.
Yeah, we don't have
just
commercials.
To make us, just to be more professional seeming,
more podcasty.
Okay, so that was a pretty mild, measured performance there from Crystal Tucker. It's almost like they got a last minute steal with the clock winding down, and they're making a direct lane for a layup to tie the game.
Right. So you do the pointless windmill. Right.
It's gonna come down to maybe a free throw exchange where you foul the guy. Do they allow that in NCAA? Maybe they don't actually.
Yeah. Well, sometimes I don't even remember if they do 1-on-1 anymore. But anyway, go ahead. Yeah.
So, but I'm sort of violating, I guess, like the putative rules of this whole tournament, and I'm making a totalistic assessment rather than one that's hinged specifically to the past week, because I feel as though that's just what my journalistic duty is.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll get to that in a minute. But
and also the thing on Starmer. He's pining for somebody in the United States to say, I'm doing something that's in America's national interest, just like Starmer said, because he's saying he's going to keep the UK out of the war with Iran, which, by the way, Starmer hasn't really done, because he has enabled the US to use its basing access in the UK for missions, and they're calling them defensive, but of course that's always fluid. What's defensive versus offensive? Like in the beginning of the Ukraine war, the United States would initially say that it was only going to give Ukraine defensive weaponry, as though like firing a rocket for defensive or offensive purposes like puts it in like a different phenomenological category. So it's always like a spurious distinction that they try to draw up to make it seem as though the involvement in the war is more limited than it actually is. But
it's like, a little more.
You can find Donald Trump or anybody. JD Vance bloviates about this constantly. We're only doing it. This is common sense, folks. We're going to do America first is what's doing within America's interests. Soccer just can't reconcile that, according to the America first concept that is now being embraced in the Republican Party from Trump on down. It is in America's vital national interest to do what they're doing in Iran, or to take Cuba, or to seize Greenland, or to take the oil from Venezuela, or whatever. Trump sees that as part and parcel with his notion of what best serves America's national interest, and he's the guy who introduced the slogan, right? America first, or whatever. So you have people who are sounding these notes if you really want to hear them and play a tune to them. It's just that he thinks that Starmer now is like doing the better version of serving Britain's national interest, even though they're such globalists. What does that even mean? I mean, is the United States not a globalist? Is it not globalism to be waging some kind of war on the other side of the world because we have to potentially open up the Strait of Hormuz?
Well, yes, no, of course, but I think what he means is, compared to. I mean, these are like anti-Brexit types, right? So
they're into like international institutions,
right? The like WEF and all
supranational institutions like the European Union, or the WEF, or etc. The United Nations, obviously.
I think that's what he's shorthanding there, basically.
I always felt that shorthand was sort of silly because it like arbitrarily narrows what would constitute globalism to just this handful of like multinational institutions that these guys don't like anyway.
Yeah.
Where other stuff that like could be easily understood to be globalistic, right? Like I don't know, having military bases all around the world, or doing like economic sanctions on a million different countries to spread American primacy. Like that could be seen as globalistic in a way, but to them, globalism is always this like weak and sniveling sort of liberal thing.
No, I think what they mean by globalism is sort of not nation state driven, right? It's the exercise of power, but outside the oh God, I can only remember the Russian word I'm looking for. Outside the Ramki.
Sovereignty or
outside the confines of sort of national structures.
That's
right?
funny that sometimes you have a mental sort of snafu where you still only recall the Russian word.
Yeah. No.
Oh, you want to? Random anecdote. I got a haircut for the first time in a while yesterday.
Everyone's complimenting you. Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was pressured into it by a female as usual. That's the only reason I ever got one. And the barber, right, was a Russian Tartar who came to the U.S. after the war started in 2022. And it was just really interesting conversation because he was saying that just recently he was impressed that I knew that the former Russian defense minister Shoigu was a Russian Tartar. Like he wouldn't think that the average customer coming into the barbershop would be aware of that.
Was he Crimean Tatar or from Tatarstan?
From Tatarstan, so like Central Asia, Russian, whatever. But he left because like he's got friends and family that have died and were sent to Ukraine and died in the war, and he had a young son who was 6 who was actually with him, who he's saying like, I'm not leaving my at the time 2-year-old to go to the Donbass. And he hates Putin for like, but he's sort of like a right, sort of like you would see, he in the American context he would almost be like right wing coded,
right,
and so like, but the American right wouldn't think that this guy would despise Putin, but he definitely did. And yeah, so it was just interesting, and I don't have like a great payoff for that story, but it was an unusually interesting barbershop anecdote.
That's cool. With his son, did he speak Tatar or Russian?
I'm not sure. I should have asked. His son was named Khabib after the UFC guy. And he was in the barbershop because they're on spring break this week.
Right.
So he was just glued to his tablet.
I had a very good Tataran friend who let's just say we went to the casino a lot together. He was a chess master who was very good at certain card games. But
the guy actually did a good job with my hair. I said, you shouldn't even bother because my hair is going to look like a disaster no matter what you
he did
what
great.
you do. But I said, okay, just work your magic, and it actually looks surprisingly presentable.
Last thing on the breaking points thing, you're right. It was relatively normal, but the mainstreaming of this UFO thing has gotten pretty weird for me. Like, I mean, between that and the mentions of Satan or the devil or demons, it's become this thing that like sort of almost everybody now agrees that we have. That UFOs are among us, but anyway,
I mean, look, it was. I mean, a turning point was in 2017. The New York Times reported, I think this was December of 2017, that Harry Reid had an earmark passed to establish within the Pentagon this UFO monitoring entity that had been secret for a long time. So like that was revealed, that was true, that was like actually reported as something that was factual. So that kind of mainstreamed it, where it was, it was validated by every conceivable authoritative source as something that actually was a function of the government, right? But then as the years went by and it got even more mainstreamed, and especially like once Marco Rubio started glomming onto it, like back when he was still a senator, and he just appeared recently in this documentary that finally came out. I think he was a senator at the time when he did the interview, but he's talking about the UFO thing, and he's like, they're basically my spidey sense, for the Sam Harris term, went off when the guys who were into this would couple it with an exhortation that the growing presence of these alleged UAPs or UFOs or unidentified objects shows why we have to hike defense spending or hike military spending or hike our surveillance capacities or invest more in the defense industrial sector, so we can ensure that we're not being threatened by China or Russia with these drones, or even Iran. Like, remember when there was the drone craze over New Jersey in December?
Yeah, no, it was right over my house.
Yeah. I mean, I saw one. I for sure saw one.
Mhm.
I saw one hovering. I don't know. Like, look, I mean, I could be confirmation biased too.
No,
And it's true that I was primed to want to see one because I went out driving around to see if I could see one around the Picatinny Arsenal, the military base in New Jersey.
Yep.
But for sure, as best I can trust my own eyes, I saw one hovering in the sky, stationary, and I had never seen that before. I don't know if it was what it was, but I saw what people were saying that they had seen, right? But at the time, I don't know if you recall this, but Jeff Van Drew, who's the Republican congressman from South Jersey, Cape May. Yeah.
He complained about it. Yeah.
Well, not only that, he said he put out the claim in official letters that he had reason to believe that these drones were coming from an Iranian mothership that was parked off the coast of New Jersey.
Yeah. Yep.
And
he did mention that.
Look where we are today.
Yeah, and I called a couple of sort of town offices. Remember there were some mayors who came forward.
Well, they all gathered. The governor called a meeting at the state police headquarters in Trenton, and all the mayors went, and they were incensed at how little information they were getting. But it's weird. They had a mayoral conclave at the state police HQ in Trenton. I think they just built a fancy new facility there, actually.
Yeah.
But obviously there were some mayors who were trying to make a political thing out of it. And I don't know if you recall, but Trump. This is when he was president-elect, right?
Yeah, no, he
said shoot down the drones.
Did he say that?
Yeah, he posted on Truth Social, shoot down the drones. And then, a month and a half later, he comes into office and he puts out a statement through Caroline Leavitt saying, whoops,
don't worry about it.
No big deal.
Yeah.
I looked into it. Don't worry, move on.
Yeah, he didn't give us any information about that. That was one of the first moments for me where I thought, okay, so this term is going to be like that, but okay, all right. So, but I do think that
but it is odd. The UFOlogy is different than actually being empirical in what is known about UAPs or something that's a little bit more rigorously empirical, like the New York Times thing, or there's been other stuff that is moderately interesting to me. It's not going to become a worldview of mine, I don't think. But there is a UFOlogy now that's so predominant that you even had J.D. Vance basically spout the Tucker theory in an interview last week with Benny Johnson that he did from the White House, where he's asked about UFOs, of course, by Benny, and J.D. Vance unveils his theory that these UFOs, first of all, he hasn't gotten a chance to go to Area 51 yet, he said, but he's going to do it eventually. He's just been busy with national security and the economy, but he'll get around to it. That's what he said. And but then he just recycled this Tucker theory, this podcast brain theory, essentially, that in his estimation, these UFOs are spirit beings. And he believes that because that's unexplained phenomena have been a feature of many world religions where they're attributed to some demonic or satanic force. So now we have a convergence of UFOs and the demonology thing that the vice president apparently thinks is something that's in his political interest to promote. So unfortunately, it seems like we kind of crossed the Rubicon with this UFO stuff. We have to at least be aware of how it's functioning in the popular mind.
But my problem with it is that I'm not sure how much of it is coming from real information and how much of it is a podcast-driven 1947 style mania.
War of the Worlds.
Well, that was when there was a UFO mania that started.
That was in New Jersey too, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's War of the Worlds was, yeah, for sure. But there were a number of UFO incidents after that where people started seeing the cigar-shaped objects and everything. That it was a satanic panic style thing that happened in the 40s and early 50s. And I think
Man, we should maybe go back and study. I mean, I've read the Wikipedia page on this, but it's kind of bare bones. There was during the Middle Ages, right? There was this phenomenon where I think it was mostly women. It might be men and women, but I think it was driven by women. Would come under a trance where they would dance in public for like days and weeks at a time until they essentially died, or they died from exhaustion. Like that was that was one of these crazes in the like social contagion crazes in the Middle Ages. But I don't know. I want to find maybe some crusty old book in some ancient library to maybe see if we can get a better rundown of what actually went on in medieval France with those crazes, and see if we can draw any.
Well, the whole St. Anthony's Fire thing, man, that was all ergot driven. I always thought that was interesting.
What's that? St. Anthony's Fire?
So there were these. We're getting far afield. I apologize,
Yeah.
but there were peasant uprisings in France in the late 1700s that were driven by they were eating rye bread that had ergot, which is
the
fungus that contains LSD. But it's a much worse experience, much more intense.
You don't you want to chill and like look at your hand and think about stuff.
Right. No, you want to reach for something sharp kind of a drug.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. All right. We're moving on. I guess we're being hurried along. All right.
Okay.
So, here's Don Lemon. Is this 5? Yes. All right. If it's 5, let's run it.
My mentors will say, why do you want to take a pay cut? But it's not about money for me. So do I ever think about it?
Mentors.
Yes. Could it happen?
Who was mentors? Like Dr. King?
If the opportunity presented itself, the right opportunity presented itself. Look, if I wanted to, I know people are going to think I'm crazy. This is going to be the headline and people are going to laugh about it. I think I could be president of the United States. I could definitely run this country better than Donald Trump.
Paper towel roll could, but yes,
yeah,
you would be a market improvement.
As an independent, though, there would be a hard time for me to run for anything because, you know, the way the system is set up, I'd have to choose a side. And so, you know, I probably would have to become a Democrat. And yeah, so, you know, am I at that point now? No. And I know people are going to say Don Lemon is crazy, but yeah, look, why can't I think about running for office? Why can't I think about being president of the United States when look at what we have? Did anybody think Barack Obama, as he says, this guy with a funny name is from a mixed background? Did anybody ever think that?
Hold on, can we pause that for a second?
Yeah, actually, a lot of people did think that.
Everybody thought Barack Obama was
yeah, the 2004 convention, the keynote.
This is my callback to that. Like the instant that happened, I said, this guy's going to be the next president. I'm sorry.
Yeah, definitely.
People
thought that maybe he would have a tough time dislodging Hillary, quasi-incumbent also with like a grip on the Democratic Party machinery, but nobody had any illusions that he was an extremely ambitious politician who was probably going to seek the presidency.
And
again, and that was when he was still a state senator in 2004.
Right, exactly. That's right. Yes, he was. And but the fact
he was in the Illinois state legislature. He hadn't even been elected to the U.S. Senate yet.
Yeah, and the fact that they gave him that platform at the convention was a major signal that that the people in the party thought he was a potential.
Yeah, like giving a keynote address at the convention to an ambitious younger politician has been a custom at both parties' conventions. Like Bill Clinton got it, I think, in either 84 or 88 or something like that.
88, I think it was. Yeah, this was back when he was the DLC frontman back then. But
but anyway, who seems like the next generation of Democratic Party talent, right? Yeah. And that they wanted to showcase maybe because he was a bit more exciting, at least on the surface, than Walter Mondale or whatever.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think who the other keynotes have been. It's kind of less of a custom now because people aren't consuming the convention as much anymore by like watching a nightly news broadcast where they can show a speech at 9 p.m. or something, and that's the keynote.
I think Reagan was another one, but
Reagan
No,
definitely
no.
gave like the main speech endorsing Gerald Ford after he had ran against Ford.
That's right, but they had to give him a slot because he had run. That's why. I'm sorry.
I mean, Ted Cruz kind of got that in 2016 with Trump, although he said vote your conscience. And
but
Trump said,
Obama's the prototypical example.
that was the prototypical example.
Yeah, so he's completely wrong. Everything he said in this thing is wrong. But go ahead.
I think actually Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson might have gotten one at the Republican convention in 2000. I don't know if he was the keynote, but that is funny. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson spoke at the 2000 Republican convention. Look it up.
I don't have an aspiration to become president, but I do think that I could run this country a lot better than Donald Trump. You know what else I think that I could run better than most people? And I've actually talked to my husband about that last night. A news organization. Because I was there, I've been in the game for so long, and I'm not interested in being, the anchor out front. I could come in and fix the bulk of their problems and lickety-split in no time flat.
Matt, a commenter says that Don should found the Lemon Party.
The Lemon Party?
Do you know it? If you don't know that reference immediately, then we should just move on, because
what is the lemon? I don't know.
I'm not even going to explain it.
Come on, now you can't do that to me. What's the Lemon Party?
Okay. There was like a handful of like early memes in the 2000s, in the early 2000s, so pre-social media, on like eBombs World and these early websites, where there would be like shock memes, right? Where you would send somebody something or show somebody something, and there would be like some outlandishly grotesque sexual act, pretty much. Like
okay,
Goatsy was one where the guy was like stretching out his anus. I don't know if you remember that one.
Yes.
Lemon Party, which of course, like, guys in high school would like just like, just try out of nowhere, just blast this in your face. So I didn't seek it out ever consciously, but I did end up seeing it. Lemon Party. It was some gay thing with, I think, a group of maybe Asian guys. I can't remember exactly, but that was Lemon Party. So this commenter is saying Don should found the Lemon Party to run.
Matt, don't Google that.
No, don't.
Okay.
Whatever you do, don't Google it. Meaning everybody's going to Google it right now.
He should found the Lemon Party. I just want to quickly say, although I am
Tub Girl's another one. Somebody guy reminded me. Don't Google that either. There's like
Tub Girl. Oh, no, I'm definitely
no. Don't. I'm telling Matt, you have been warned.
3 guys, white old men sucking and kissing.
Oh yeah, I thought for some reason I remember them being Asian, but maybe they're white.
I think I have seen the old guys fucking and sucking video.
It's just an image. It's just an image.
It's just an image. All right.
Because that was back when it wasn't so simple on the internet to like send videos around.
Right.
So the go-to would have been these shock images that people would make like phony links, like click here for the latest video game news or something, and you click it and you get blasted with Tub Girl or Lemon Party or whatever.
So we're gonna laugh at Don Lemon, but I have to make this clear ahead of time. The 2 things that he said in there: he could be president, he could run a major news organization. I think that absolutely could happen. Like both of those things could happen, and I would not be surprised.
No,
I'm just saying, it's hilarious from his point of view that he thinks that that's appropriate. So somebody who doesn't know what a misdemeanor is.
I mean, you got to think that in 2028 there are going to be some, like the roster of candidates now who are being preliminarily discussed can't be the sum total of it, right? Because they're only talking about senators and governors and the more conventional candidates. There's got to be at least a couple of enterprising novelty candidates who, in quote unquote inspired by Trump on some level, throw their hat in the ring, right? So Stephen A. Smith was talking about it. Don Lemon, you might as well go ahead, Don. I can't wait to hear you speak at the human rights. Whatever it is, human rights agency, the LGBT groups, where you're giving an impassioned plea about how we have to protect the trans youth or whatever. Human Rights Campaign, one of these like dopey DC, LGBT organizations that like no longer really have much of a reason to exist, but have to keep the gravy train going.
Right. Yes, exactly. All right. Who wins in this matchup?
Again, This might disappoint the purists out there who are looking for a more like methodical evaluation of their performances in the past week.
No,
But
we're gonna have to.
I simply must go with breaking points because it's my personal sort of bugaboo.
All right. I'm voting for Don, so we're gonna have to ask the Magic 8 Ball. Okay. Should breaking points, and I'll show it on screen. Should breaking points be the winner of this competition?
I want to hold on. I want a neutral referee present for this Magic 8 Ball shaking.
It's
can't
a
read
no. Wait.
I can't really read it. Something.
Shit. It was my instinct was no, but that's all right. Hang on.
You just read it. I mean, I can't. I will take you at your word to be faithful to the results of the Magic 8 Ball.
Fuck. You know what? I'll just vote with you. Hang on a second.
Man, you don't have the courage of your convictions.
Well, you'll make better TV.
Okay.
Hang on a second.
Breaking points. Congratulations. Bump up.
Breaking points. You move ahead. All right. So our last two, the other matchup. This is like Indiana State versus DePaul in 1978.
Okay, that's you got to explain that one, or I'll just kind of I'll just assume that what you're saying is a good parallel because that's
78 or 79. 78 it had to be.
Was that a fierce matchup, or was it an upset, or what was that about?
That was the
two like low level schools.
The most famous college basketball game ever was Michigan State versus Indiana State. That was Magic versus Larry.
Okay, yeah, right.
In the end, and it was preceded by a game in which Indiana State played DePaul, if I remember correctly. DePaul was a completely
DePaul, like in Chicago.
Yeah, they were stacked. They had like Mark Aguirre, Terry Cummings, all these guys, and Indiana
Mark
State pulled
Aguirre?
that. Yeah.
The baseball player.
Mark Aguirre, not McGuire.
You said Mark McGuire, the home run king.
Aguirre.
Sammy Sosa, 98 or 99 was it?
Yeah.
Two
hold
girls,
on,
one
Stephen.
cup. Okay, that's another one of these grotesque sexual memes, sexual revulsion memes that were popular in the early 2000s. Two girls, one cup. Okay, that's another thing you should look up. Two Dons, one lemon. How about that?
Two Dons, one lemon. I like that. But no, Crystal and Sagar are on to the finals. Who could have seen that coming?
This thing has been rigged from the beginning.
It's been rigged from the beginning. So, all right. Our last matchup is Megyn Kelly versus Joe Rogan. So, with Megyn, let's start with Megyn. And she didn't really have. Let's just go with SOT 4 because the other one is well. Let's start with the video. Let's go with number 4 first.
A single man with no wife or children or grandchildren has now been spotted at Disney in multiple photos. Here's one where he's pouring, I don't know, coffee, water. And there's another where he is walking around with a bubble wand, Stu. A bubble wand. How old is Lindsey Graham? 70? There he is in the middle of Disney with a bubble wand. I'm sorry, but motherfucker. Look at him. He's pushing.
I like the graphic.
All of our troops and put them in danger so he can get off because he hasn't been getting off, at least not with a woman. That's obvious for his life. And now he goes to fucking Disney World while they deploy to Iran and he's blowing bubbles. I'm just angry about his influence over President Trump. And I'm angry that I have to look at pictures of him with his bubble wand. And I'm angry I have to pretend he's not gay when it's very clear he is. Why doesn't he?
Why does she have to pretend that?
In my humble opinion, he's an insult to the gays. Gays tend to be fabulous. Why is he more fabulous? I don't understand how he didn't get the memo. And I'm sick and tired of seeing this man's influence over our national politics and our troops.
I mean, I do think that the look, I mean, I've never been a fan of Lindsey Graham, to put
Yeah,
it
not
mildly, but
mildly. Yeah.
the low blow. I think these are some pretty harsh low blows about the personal life stuff. I doubt. I mean, we could always just ask. I mean, Megyn Kelly could send a query to his office if she was really that interested as to why he was in Disney World. And it is funny that TMZ is now doing more political reporting, where they're actually saying they're going to set up a bureau in DC, and they're going around catching politicians, on some little holiday or relaxing when there's a partial government shutdown. That's the premise behind those photos. But I don't know, the low blows about the personal life and like just assuming that he must be doing something like sexually suspicious at Disney World, when I don't know, it seems like in one of the photos, like he's with some group with the woman and the young child, and maybe I don't know what the relationship is, but like really, I mean, that's what you think Lindsey Graham is going there to what trawl for like nubile young boys to like meet up in the bathroom with or something? Is that like the implication?
So it's been an in-joke in political media for jokes about Lindsey Graham, suggestive jokes about Lindsey Graham have been a thing in political media for a long time.
Yeah.
Right. But
he's a lifelong bachelor.
He's what in England they would call a confirmed bachelor, right? But
he could just be asexual. I mean, he could just be so into his like job as a senator and like wanting to bomb Iran that I don't know. There are some people who are just like pretty much asexual and whatever. Maybe he's like a celibate gay. I mean, who knows and who cares that much, really?
Exactly. And there are also some other politicians who have some things that haven't been reported on because they're more in the realm of rumor or whatever. He doesn't have like a scandal that I know of. So
yeah, it wasn't like one of these Pete guys who were married and got caught like liaising with somebody, right? And that he tried to cover it up and it came out, whatever. Like there's no indicia of him ever doing anything sexually at all. He's almost like he's almost like in the priesthood, but it's the U.S. Senate.
This is a good comment at Gregor Ray. Lindsay does have a good Paul Lind and Mayberry delivery. That's pretty good. I have to say
explain that to me.
Andy Griffith's show.
Oh, Andy Griffith's show. Okay, got it.
And Paul Lind.
I didn't know Paul Lind. I thought I knew Mayberry. Is Paul Lind Andy Griffith?
Yeah, and he was also the Hollywood Squares.
Okay, I would have screwed up that Trivial Pursuit.
He was the fabulous comic relief in Hollywood Squares.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, yeah. With Bruce Valanche.
Yeah, Bruce Valanche.
Bruce Valanche on Hollywood Squares. You never saw that? He was like the heavyset guy with the big beard and hair, and he was like on every night. Bruce Valanche. I don't know. Look it up. I mean, maybe it's a different era of Hollywood Squares.
Maybe, yeah. I'm older than you by quite a lot. So, okay, all right. So Megyn did that. Crossing.
It's kind of just lazy. I mean, that's my problem with it. It's sort of just like lazy and knee jerk. There's nothing like that especially outrageous about it, I guess. But it's just sort of, it's sort of like boring and by the book. Like it does not suggest any original insight. Because I saw people on X saying, because like when the TMZ put out the photos of Lindsey Graham trotting around Disney World, the instant thing that everybody was saying on X was, oh, this guy's childless, and yet he's sending our boys to Iran, and how horrible is that? Okay, I mean, look, if you want to make that point, make the point. But the point is, with Megyn, it's not as though she formulated an original insight and came up with that.
Yeah. And sort of crossing the red line of openly saying something that you're not supposed to say. Whatever. We can debate the morality of that later. Now we get to Joe. Joe had Theo Von on this week. So thank
God we delayed this stream one day, because we would have missed this last minute entry into the tournament.
So these are the two top, if I'm not mistaken, these are the two top rated podcasts in America now.
Well, last I checked yesterday on Spotify, Joe Rogan is number 1 overall, and Theo Von is number 6.
Okay. All right.
And Candace fell out of the top 10. Like I think maybe Apple and Spotify use slightly different metrics or something, but like Candace Hutt was hovering around 10 on Apple Podcast last I checked. She's now down to 11. I think there's some new podcast, I forget by who, some woman comedian that like skyrocketed recently. But number one is Joe. He's the guy to beat, probably unbeatable. And Theo Vaughn is now at number 6.
But Theo's up there, okay, and
top 10. I mean, please.
Yeah, and boy did they talk about some shit in this episode.
Joe seems to think that Theo Vaughn is undergoing some kind of mental health crisis.
Really?
So people are, yeah. I mean, Joe says like you're losing your marbles, man, and he's only like half joking. You didn't see this?
No, I missed this part.
Can the producer show the clip that I sent in of them yesterday? Because that kind of sets the scene here.
Oh no, we do have that. I'm sorry.
Okay.
We do have that. We do have that. Yes, I missed that. Okay, so we'll get to that. Okay. That's our kicker. Let's go to SOT 1. Because, well, folk, you'll see.
And you know who was a big opponent of Israel getting nuclear weapons?
JFK.
JFK. Yeah. That's what a lot of people think led back into the left.
Oh, yeah. Before they killed him, who?
And people are also scared because no one's getting in trouble for things. Like no one's getting in trouble for the Epstein files. No one's getting in trouble for...
Yeah, that's almost disappeared, kind of. What is it that like Israel holds over America that we do those things?
Well, first of all, there's a lot of people that donated to the Trump campaign that have significant influence over him.
Yeah,
that lobby for Israel,
right?
And they're very beholden.
Maybe that's what happens. Maybe some of these guys get into office and they're like, "Look, we're going to kill your family. We're going to kill. This is all the things that are going to happen unless you play this game." Do you think that kind of stuff happens?
I think it has happened for sure.
Because it's crazy
to say it doesn't happen is pretty naive. I think House of Cards is probably really close to what the government's actually like. Go back and watch that show again. Who knows if he did it or didn't do it? I'm not saying he did it. I'm not saying he didn't do it. But I am saying that the story of him climbing up there with a disassembled gun, assembling it, making that shot, disassembling it again, climbing down. If that's the narrative, that sounds like straight horse shit.
Yeah.
And the video of him hopping down does not look like he's a rifle when he's hopping down. So what's happening? If that's the narrative, and I don't know if they're still sticking with the story, but that was what they were saying at first, that he disassembled it and reassembled it. Reassembling a gun does not make it accurate.
Oh, that's firearms expert Joe. Lets us know that Tyler Robinson couldn't have killed Charlie Kirk. The clip that I made up is even more bonkers.
We got 2 more.
Okay.
So let's go to number 2. But while we're waiting,
I remember watching Oliver Stone on Joe Rogan years ago, where they're talking about JFK because Oliver Stone made the JFK movie, and he had some new documentary out, I think, on the JFK assassination that he was promoting on Rogan, and Rogan was super into it. Never once did the idea that Israel engineered the assassination of JFK come up, but now because he's absorbing stuff from the slop heap, Joe Rogan is just of the mind that like everybody has always believed that Israel must have killed JFK because JFK was against the Israeli nuclear program. By the way, I have to maybe do a deep research dive on that, but like the stuff that I do know about the U.S. policy posture toward Israeli nuclear weapons in the 60s, which kind of cast JFK as this guy who was boldly and courageously standing up to it and opposing it, and maybe that's why he got killed. I don't think that theory holds water factually, but I got to look a little bit more into it because JFK was very solicitous of Jews as a Democratic constituency, including by I pulled up a newspaper archive thing a while ago where for the 1962 midterm elections, right? JFK's White House had a sort of note transmitted to the Jewish Democratic Party organizations in New York that they should all vote Democrat or they should galvanize Democratic votes in the 1962 midterms because if he had enough political support behind it from that demographic, JFK would, for the first time, authorize the provision of military armaments from the U.S. to Israel, which he then did. But he was dead. But he was bitterly opposed to the nuclear program or something, and that's why they killed him. Like it doesn't make any sense. It's just
But Michael,
it's stuff that
don't-
people. I mean, people don't read a book and come up with these theories, right? They're getting these fragments of nonsense from.
But don't you see how awesome it is on another level though? Like now we get to have we have UFOs. Well, we'll get to UFOs, but now we get to have the JFK assassination attached to all this shit.
Well,
right?
of course.
Right. So it's
Before
even better.
Epstein, that was like maybe the one mega narrative, or like that was a mega narrative. And like, look, people,
Right.
I'm not saying just believe at face value everything in the Warren Commission or everything. It just it becomes a sort of self-perpetuating mythology, just like
Right.
Epstein has, right? Which is sort of divorced from, because like look at this new layer that people have added onto it with, after October 7th, when people are now in search for anything that can be sinisterly attributed to Israel. But in my view, there's more than enough to actually do so that's reality based. If you were interested in being remaining reality based, which most people clearly aren't, but it's not just like the U.S. provides too much weaponry to Israel and then doesn't constrain them and their pulverization of Gaza, and they're now invading Lebanon or whatever. Like that's not good enough for people. Now it's got to be this totalizing narrative that ropes in JFK and I guess ropes in Epstein. Israel killed Charlie Kirk. Israel maybe was threatening to kill Donald Trump, and that's why he's at war with Iran right now. Israel deceived Trump into attacking Iran, just like they deceived George W. Bush into invading Iraq. And oh, by the way, Israel kidnapped the Lindbergh baby and sunk the lost city of Atlantis.
Right. And the Lusitania and the Titanic. All right, we got two more of these things. This is a fast one.
Do you think we're being visited?
This is great.
Do you?
I think a lot of it's lies too.
Do you think the government's the big governments?
Now that was funny.
What do you mean?
What do you mean? Do you think these upper echelon people have met the visitors and there's some other thing going on? Because it feels like something's going to happen soon, Joe.
Perhaps that's possible. Perhaps. But if I was from another planet, I don't check in to see who the president of the lake is. I just show up and trick those dumb motherfuckers with fake fish, pull them out by their lips, take a picture of them, drop it off back in the water. Because they're a bass. They're so below me.
Right.
I don't think like who's the leader of the bass.
Right.
So the idea that aliens come down here and who's the leader of the people.
Good point.
I highly doubt they give a fuck if they talk to Trump.
Yeah.
He's out there building a ballroom and shit. They're like, leave that guy alone. I'm not interested in him.
Theo Von actually can be funny. He's got this weirdly unique talent. His brain is wired in a certain way where he comes up with these absurdist non sequiturs that are legitimately funny. I have laughed at him. I don't know that I ever actually laughed authentically at anything Joe Rogan has said. Like, it doesn't seem like he's that funny of a guy, really, even though I guess he's a comedian. Like, he's a talented podcaster. But Theo Von does have a way about him, which is really like genuinely amusing. It's very idiosyncratic. It's good.
No, he can. He absolutely can be funny. But that whole thing was really funny. Like,
Like, was that a bit? Do we think that was a bit? Or was
that wasn't a bit. That was definitely. Well,
you don't think that's like a partial bit?
You could tell the producer was having a little fun with the cuts back and forth, but no, they were. Do you think so?
Like when he takes the comedic beat of a pause, right, and then says,
Right.
"Do you?" You don't think there was any part of that was a bit
pre-rehearsed?
I mean, not pre-rehearsed, but like just them having a comedic banter where they're like going with the flow.
It could be. It could be. They're both comedians.
Improvisation, improv.
But
that was perfect timing.
It was perfect timing, but it's exactly how shit happens now. So I say
because I don't know. I mean, I'm uncertain because in the next clip, which hopefully we'll play,
we'll play.
Joe does seem to think that Theo is losing his marbles and needs to get off his psychotropic drugs.
Yeah, let's go to shot 8, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Everybody just feels scared, and it makes
Well,
things
they
scary.
should, because a lot of things are getting exposed right now. There's a lot of fraud, and you're seeing it at the highest levels of government. And people are also scared because no one's getting in trouble for things. Like no one's getting in trouble for the Epstein files. No one's getting in trouble for.
Yeah, that's almost disappeared, kind of.
Well, that's part of what happens when there's some sort of a big social thing. One thing that's in the past that leaders have used to cover up problems at home is a fucking war. I'm not saying that that's why they bombed Iran, but that would be a way to do it.
I'm not saying
I'm
just saying it's another conspiracy
and
thing.
if you were thinking about doing it anyway, you might be able to justify it.
It's all just a cat and mouse game. People are like, we'll elect the Democrats next time. It's like, but it's all the same shit has been happening forever. They haven't been helping anybody forever. They're letting fucking politicians slurp on kids. All of our fucking money goes to Israel and they're using it to fucking genocide people. It's like everybody is scared out of their wits right now. It's like our religious leaders are afraid to speak out. And it's like it's a time where it's like Satan is amongst us and our religious leaders are fucking talking about bullshit at the poll. It's just like, what is going? I don't know, man.
We got to get you off those antidepressants, son. You're losing your fucking marbles.
You think I am?
Come hang out with us. Just chill out.
I'm here.
Just chill out at the mothership tonight.
I do have to pee in a little while, but
you can pee.
I'm gonna pee in a minute, man.
We'll let you.
But no, people are just scared, dude. This is shit that I hear from people.
They won't let you pee until you give them your guns.
Really?
I can't tell if any aspect of it is a bit, or if Joe might be genuinely alarmed at his apparent mental state, because there comes a point where he does look kind of manic, saying, "Look, people are really scared. This is all people are telling me this. Like people are telling him that they're scared about politicians slurping kids and Israel something or other,
slurping on kids,
right? Like a Slurpee." But like either he's a really good actor, which is
what would
possible,
the Dairy Queen kid Slurpee be named?
Either he's a really good actor, which is plausible, or he has I don't know. He's got sort of a look in his eye that you kind of associate with somebody who needs to get their bearings mentally.
I don't know. I mean, I watch the entirety of this stuff, and my first selfish thought is I can't compete with this.
No, I mean it's that was pretty good. I mean, Theo Von is talented, although he bombed doing stand up not long ago, which is strange because maybe he's kind of like just too sort of accustomed to the easy rhythms of the podcast.
Joking. Are they both joking?
No, I don't think they're both. I think my sense is that it's kind of like a partial bit, meaning there's a kernel of truth as they see it to what they're saying, but they're kind of, amping it up a bit for comedic effect. No?
Yeah. Yes, they're playing around with it, but the root of the joke is that it's true.
Yeah.
Right? So, we got.
I mean, maybe the ambiguity of it is something is like to their credit because we're discussing right now like what we can actually understand it to be. Partial bit. Okay, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, the issue that we have is exactly what you were talking about with JD Vance before. At least this is the issue for me, is that there's so much of this in the ether now. This podcast slop, which is, as we see, it all merges together. It becomes one big thing, right? So Israel is responsible for JFK. We got visitors coming down. They're like
a giant toilet flushing, and they all end up in the same drain pipe.
Right. We're just like bass to these aliens that are coming down, and they just put hooks in our big fat
mouths. They're like different specks of shit on different parts of the toilet bowl, but once you get the really strong flush, everything swirls around and melds together, and then everything gets united as it gets thrusted into the sewage system.
Here we have this isn't a bit. Hold on a second. Trump has prepared speech on extraterrestrial life. Laura Trump says that's Alan Collins, the outstanding student loan activist. Bigfoot is next. We haven't had Bigfoot. That's true.
Yeah, I mean, my belief is that the Loch Ness Monster killed Charlie Kirk.
the Loch Ness Monster. Could Loch Ness Monster hold a 30-06? Or what do you?
Just
that's
think
not
about
the right weapon anyway.
Think about it. Take some of the St. Anthony's Fire stuff and think about it.
Right, and do we have the palm gun? We showed that already, right? The palm gun bit that you found?
Oh no, I don't know if we showed that. From the wrestler.
Yeah, from the wrestler. Which one is it? The Big Valbowski.
Val Venus. His name is Val Venus. His nickname is the Big Valbowski.
Yeah.
His official name as a wrestler was Val Venus.
Val Venus.
And he's as a semi-retired wrestler now. He's gotten a lot into like the legal marijuana industry. So I think that explains a little bit of where his head's at.
Hold on a second. So Michael Tracy is such an op.
I'd like to know an op. I would be curious to know an op for what? Like whose interest am I advancing here? Israel, really? Okay. Is there anything else that you think I'm an op for? Like what? Everything is always an op. Everything's a psyop. Like life is a psyop for these people.
Hold on a second.
The universe itself is just a psyop.
The monster does not have opposable thumbs. He's ruled out. That's probably a good point. He's a plesiosaur, right? Can we get back up on screen? Let's just watch it.
Take a look at this man right here, folks. This is Charlie Kirk, security guy. He appears
just like, if
to
people
have
aren't
a
aware,
palm
right?
gun
Okay,
in
this
his
is Val
right
Venus from the
hand,
WWF or
and he aims everything
WWE.
off around
Whose whole
directly
shtick was
into
that
Charlie.
he was like a dirty ladies man. I don't know if we have the intro clip that I gave you of his entrance music, but like he would show up in a towel in the ring, and then he would do this like gyrating wiggle dance thing where he would be like, doing a sexual sensual dance to, and his catchphrase would be "Hello, ladies." Yeah, here we go. With that almost like gross sounding saxophone.
I love it.
He's in the shower. Okay,
let's hear his political analysis.
But I just want people to be aware that this is now the political analysis, or I guess the criminological analysis.
Yep,
that we're getting is from that gentleman.
Yeah, let's watch the whole thing.
Folks, this is Charlie Kirk, security guy. He appears to have a palm gun in his right hand, and he aims it at Charlie Kirk and squeezes the palm gun, firing off a round directly into Charlie Kirk's neck. I suspect he was aiming center mass, and the bullet may have ricocheted, maybe off the cross or something else that was hard, and ricocheted up into his neck area. As you can see, folks, in the right fist between the middle finger and the ring finger is the barrel of the palm pistol. You see him squeeze the palm pistol, firing off a round into Charlie Kirk, murdering Charlie Kirk. Now, if you pay attention to that right hand, it's going to go.
And that thing's got like 3 million views.
I don't know what to say, but look. My obvious vote is going to be for Joe. I feel bad. I like the guy. I do. But this is what's happened to information and to news in this country is so interesting because we've had partisan waves of mania, sort of back and forth, going back quite a while now. But this thing now where all of the major outlets ascribe to essentially the same outlines of the same weird stuff. It's so bizarre, and it's accelerating so fast that I just don't know how to keep up with it anymore. Like it's
all bow before the master algorithm, including the vice president. I mean, maybe Donald J. Trump is the only one who's immune to it.
That's the thing, though. It goes into the brains of Trump, Vance, whatever, right? And I guarantee you, it'll be in the brains of Don Lemon or whoever runs on the Democratic side next time. I mean, it's.
I just saw something about Gavin Newsom. He was an early contestant in this tournament. There was a New York Times article. I didn't get a chance to read it yet, but here's the headline. Right, this is from March 31st. New York Times headline: Newsom's new attack on political enemies: "You're gay."
Well, that's the Candace thing, right?
Well, I'm saying he's getting that from somewhere, right?
Right. Yeah. Like,
and he's trying to repurpose
what's the
it.
Candace? what's the Candace expression? Hang on a second. Like but she uses some.
Newsom is actually.
Oh yeah.
Newsom is getting that from basically like the right-wing based youthful internet sphere, where they would just like call each other gay. They're trying to like bring back how guys in the locker room would heckle each other and call each other gay. They wanted to bring that back, and they want to not succumb to PC where you can't just like say people are gay or whatever, or say retard. And I guess Gavin Newsom, I guess, is like truly enough recognizing that that's the state of things online, and you say, okay, I guess I can just appropriate that for my own purposes, and who cares if these anachronistic LGBT groups might issue like a nominal statement saying that's offensive. Nobody cares what they have to say anymore.
Yeah, no. Candace, I think her.
Because everybody knows that Gavin Newsom is not like quote homophobic. He was the first mayor to perform same-sex marriages in like 2003 or something, wasn't he, in San Francisco?
Right, of course, but we're now. It's become this meme, right? Like where you had. I think Candace's big quote was "Space is fake and gay." Right.
Yeah, something like that's a little sort of it's a cliche that they like to repeat.
But now
everything is fake and gay.
Everything is fake and gay. So now we've got everybody.
I don't disagree. I don't necessarily disagree with.
That space is fake and gay.
Everything is fake and gay.
Everything is fake and gay. But to be serious for a moment, unfortunately, that's our shtick. It's our deeply unsaleable shtick. Is that it's unstoppable. It will take over everybody.
It's like a slow moving tsunami or something.
Yeah, it's a brain eating disease that is highly contagious, and it will take over the entire. It already has taken over pretty much most of the internet, and it
will take over politics.
Right.
In accordance with that.
Yeah. So even though I think Joe is funny, having him sit there saying, with regard to the alien question, the way I look at it is, if I were an alien, if I came down, would I talk to the head bass? No, they're just all bass to me. Like that's kind of political analysis now, right? Like, and
you should do a one-man show with that as like the starting premise.
I mean, I like that as a premise, but it's not news, right? Or and so
he's a comedian, bro. He's a dummy. I'm not a journalist. What do you want from me? I just have the largest audience on the internet. I have no attendant public obligations at all.
And the funny
that stem from this absolutely mammoth platform.
And
I'm just hanging out. I'm just shooting the shit. So I have another guy on who's saying, politicians, we know for sure, it's been proven, right, that politicians are going around slurping on kids,
and the demons walk among us. The devil walks.
Satan is among us.
He's among us.
I mean, those are the ravings of like what you would have considered in the past to be a mentally ill person.
Totally.
Right? They need help. Like we should have empathy for them.
Yeah.
I don't know if Theo Von is mentally ill. I mean, he doesn't look. I don't know.
I don't think he's
diagnosed too much. But like Joe Rogan is the one who tells him he's losing his marbles. He has to get off his antidepressants. Come hang out, and we'll have some kind of like recuperation session or something.
But it's not classic mental illness. It's just this is just what people are say, right? And it's just hugely influential. I used to defend all these podcasters when people would say, hey, they need to
tone it down a bit.
Tone it down a bit. And when they would say things like, we're not newscasters, I agreed for a long time. But they're leading the news right now, right?
I semi-agreed too, maybe at the time. I'm not sure exactly. Like, there was like sort of an annoying liberal critique maybe 5-6 years ago of Joe Rogan. I think we might have talked about this, where again, he was always accused of platforming something that was really bad.
No, the Move On did a whole thing against him.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess like my instinct was sort of like to almost circle the wagons to some degree when that was the main critique. But like, that's not the critique that I'm making. I know he's not a journalist. I think that's kind of part of the problem. I'm not saying he must transform somehow into a journalist, right? That's just not possible. I don't know what to do about any of this. I don't think there anything is to do. I'm just sort of like, throwing my hands in the air, just sort of not describing it.
Yeah, because it's not his fault.
Right. Yeah.
You know, he's just doing a podcast. The problem is you have huge numbers of people who are tuning in, and this is where they get their information from.
And he's the most sought after political endorsement in the
Right.
United States, right?
Right.
So it's not just like, not even just that he's got a big audience online. That would be significant enough.
Yeah.
But it's like, this is what there was a whole, you know, one of the main narratives of the 2024 election was, is Kamala going to go on, or is she isn't? Is Trump going to go on? When is he going to go on? Is he going to endorse? Who's he going to endorse, etc.? It was like this, you know, the world according to Joe Rogan.
And by the way, I agree that she made a big mistake not going on. You know, she might have won
everything within reason. I mean, that's what you see now. Gavin Newsom trying to fix.
Hold on a second. At David in San Francisco 7819, Loch Ness Monster is Mossad. Clearly, do we think he is?
Yeah, it's the Loch Ness Monster with a dreidel.
That is a long range. That is a long time horizon.
I think the Loch Ness, the Loch Ness Monster in the Loch Ness doesn't actually eat sort of the particles from the algae or anything. He eats matzah.
Right.
Just in time for Passover. Why is this night different from all other nights? Because the Loch Ness Monster has assassinated Charlie Kirk.
What a great segue to our Have a Happy Passover weekend. I'm sorry. That is really funny.
He is risen, meaning Charlie is risen.
Is that
I don't want to be too sacrilegious because I know people get very upset about that, especially on Easter.
Which
I was going to make a joke about like either some combination of Charlie Kirk or the Loch Ness Monster being resurrected from the dead.
Right. Okay, so here we have a good. It's not the podcaster's fault. It's the lack of critical thinking among too many listeners. Yeah, that's probably.
It's mutually reinforcing.
Again, I feel terrible about all this because on one level, to me, this is all kind of funny. Like, I'm fully in favor of Americans being completely reading crazy shit. Like, that's what the internet was originally for.
I mean, also, I don't put the blame on the average citizen who gets served up this stuff on their algorithm and just kind of habitually listens to Joe Rogan or whatever. Just let this, because like most people have normal lives, right? So they're just like, this is just sort of escapism or just some light entertainment while they're, you know, jogging or going to the supermarket or picking up their kids, whatever. Just like I wouldn't blame the people who, you know, in the 1960s sat around every night watching the evening news and maybe didn't absorb that information with the high degree of critical scrutiny either. So I think that's kind of a constant, right? I'm more, if I am going to allocate blame to any party, it's going to be the guys who have made a commercial behemoth out of this stuff and, you know, and have this gigantic outsized political and cultural influence and just refuse to accept that there could be any possibly public spirited obligations that could be attended to it.
So I'm going to take and this is my last comment. So because we're running long already. At Jacob6908 says, well, the problem is left-wing media and journalists have lied so much. I would say just media have lied so much over the years. People want to believe anyone other than the New York Times. If I were to place blame anywhere, it would be on the conventional media, because the collapse in belief, especially after the WMD episode, I think it really started there, but it's been accelerating steadily since that moment. And what's happened is people, you know, it started with people going to the Daily Show for the news, to me, right? You remember that moment? And it was sort of widely, it became a kind of hot media story for a little bit.
That would have been around probably 2004 too, right? I mean, I know the Daily Show started in like 96, but it became like a juggernaut into the Bush years.
Yeah, more in the Bush years, mid to late Bush years.
Like 04, 05, something like that.
04, 05, yeah, maybe even 06, right?
06, yeah.
And then there were suddenly the remember Fox launched a Dennis Miller,
the Slacktivists, right?
The Slacktivists. Is that what it was?
We're like, I remember like Daily Show watchers were like, they were stereotyped as like stoners in their dorm room who were, if they were doing any activism, wasn't real activism, it was slacktivism, which is why you needed the Rock the Vote guys to go out to their campuses and get them registered and stuff.
Right.
That was a whole thing. You don't really see that as sort of that typology as much anymore.
Right.
Because everybody's presumptively hyper politicized in the Trump era. So it's not about trying to activate any sort of slackers to understand why it is that they should vote for John Kerry or something.
Right. But the presumption that you were not going to get the actual truth on the news started around that time. And, there's a reason why Joe Rogan's endorsement was important. It's because look what happened in 2016. What were the endorsement numbers for
in the newspapers?
In the newspapers, it was like
Trump got endorsed by the National Enquirer. He got endorsed by some town newspaper in rural Nevada with like a circulation of 200, and there's maybe one or two more, but everybody else endorsed.
Yeah, it was like 97-2 or some ridiculous number like that, right? Like almost all the major endorsements came from went Hillary's way, and it had no impact, right? Whereas Joe Rogan had a huge impact, I think. So.
Yeah.
All right, so the finals are.
I think that's probably mostly, I don't know if mostly, but it's largely a function of just technological change. Of course, like nobody cares what the local newspaper, which is probably going out of business, endorses in their, anachronistic editorial page, but people are getting Joe Rogan beamed into their phones all day.
Right. All right, so we got our final. It's Joe Rogan against Breaking Points.
Yes.
And we'll probably do some kind of coronation that's timed to the final game. But
I think we should invite some guests. Or
that's a good idea.
We
that's
should
a good idea. Yeah.
Or should we do like a Howard Stern whack pack thing where like we'll get all those Aeneas. We should get some actually mentally ill people to participate.
I know some.
I want people babbling and drooling and like sticking crayons in their eyes and stuff.
Absolutely. Well, okay, that's our task over this Passover / Easter weekend, or whatever it is.
Salam alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Have a good weekend, everybody. Thanks for hanging out. Michael, thanks for doing your hard work yesterday and coming out today. And we will see you all next week.
Bye-bye.